of my weavers who use sectional warping techniques. This is putting the warp on the back beam using sectional rails and using a tension box and a spool rack. So we have a new spool rack in our department now. It's called Rosie's Spool Rack. And there's specific things that are a little bit different than the vertical racks that they sell all over, and we sell those too, but this is just a different one, so I just really want to highlight this one. In this rack, it's more of an A-frame, okay? There is a slight slant to it. It is made for spools, not cones, spools, okay? So people that do rugs, I've done cottling, I've done bread napkins, I've done everything on spool racks like this because I really like the way I can line it out and it matches my diagram that I'm actually putting on. So normally I do 2-inch sectional sections on my loom. You can do 1 inch, makes no difference. It depends on how you are set up, okay? So on the spool rack, let's talk about this one. The spools need to come off this way, which is clockwise, okay? That's how they need to be inserted onto the spool rack. And the reason is that this part actually overhangs on the left-hand side. And this I've got sort of set up to show you that these spools are being funneled off to this side. If I was all the way over here, this particular one would go here and it would be inserted here. Next one, if I had another one, let me just take this one off real quick. It would go on here, see how it's funneling off? It would go next to it. We have 10 pegs, 7 across, total of 70 spools can actually be used. The reason I like this is that when they are being pulled, if you notice this, they're at an angle and there's somewhat of a drag on it. So that actually helps you so there's not as much tension on those rollers, okay? You do need a tension box with this because if you have a spool that is slightly less in diameter, it's going to have a different, it comes off quicker, or if it was on the vertical rack it would come off. These don't ever, as fast as you're going, never usually backtrack on themselves, which is another reason I like this rack. I do like it because it folds up and it's all right here. So using the Rosie spool rack, you need to use spools. It can be any size thread, but when you're doing these, it must be clockwise. That's really important, so that when you're putting this spool here, for example, it would sit and they're all spooling at the same way. So this one would go directly above it, right in through here, so that when you see these, they're going to twirl at the same rate and at the same way, so they're not going to be caught on each other. If I'm doing one below it, like another spool here, like I said, it's got to be clockwise. This would sit and then it would come up and you would put it in the next slot here. So once again, they're all going to spool it the same way. If you preferred to use different sections of the rack, you're going to use these, they would fall into the next one. Okay, so that's really important that they go this way. Okay, so on the far end, this spool here would go here. All right, another spool, if it was further down, goes here. If it's up here, it's actually going to go directly in front right here. And there. The next one would be here, next one would be here, next one would be here. You could fill the whole rack up if you wanted to, or just a portion of it, depending on how many ends per inch you need. All right, so on the Rosie spool rack, it is an A-frame. And it is, it will fold up like this to hang in your studio. It is also down here at the very bottom, they have Texel cord right here. We have 2 screws, and if you don't like the angle, you can actually take it off and do a different angle like this. It just depends on your preference or how much room you have. I will say, once you get the weight of the spools on there, it's going to be heavy. So you need to kind of determine that before you actually put all the spools on it, because to lift that would be heavy. We actually do give you extra dowels because they will break off. They are not glued in. Okay, and the reason being is that if you need to travel with it, or if you need to replace these even after we've given you some, we did not glue them on purpose. So if you've been looking for a spool rack for doing any sectional warping, or even thinking about that technique about warping, and I've had a lot of calls about sectional warping in the last year, so some people have been investigating it. So this is the spool rack that I think has got some great features to it. There are different features than the other ones that are out there. So we do make it in-house, and just check it out because I think you might be interested in it or some of the ideas about it. So if you have any questions, call us. Thank you.